Hello, welcome to the RBH webinar. This is Russ Walker. Say again. So this is our fourth webinar in a series, and we're happy to have everybody here today. Today we have a great speaker, Rebecca, and just to start off our health and happiness, we're already laughing at ourselves because we've been talking for 4 minutes now with the mute button on. And fortunately, somebody noticed that, and now our presenter noticed it, and so I apologize for that. So today our speaker is Rebecca Sinclair. Rebecca has over 20 years experience in the EAP field and is currently a clinician in our Health Professional Services program. I know she is definitely one of our top 5 laughers in the company. Hearing her is always fun. So I really look forward to this presentation, and now that we're 4 minutes behind, thanks to me not taking the mute button off, Rebecca, it's all up to you.
Thank you, Russ. Well, that was a great introduction. I don't know what I just said. Welcome out there in webinar land. I'm going to talk to you today about health and happiness and really how that does increase productivity at work. It increases your loyalty as a team member and brings you together. And the reason that I started doing this work, it was over 20 years ago. I was volunteering at Cascade AIDS Project and facilitating groups for folks who had AIDS. At that time, there was not any kind of a medication that really was going to give them any hope. And across my desk, there was a flyer that came in, and it was about humor, health, and happiness and the healing power of laughter and how to use that. And it was in LA, and I went for 4 days to this seminar workshop and learned a whole lot. And learned also that it's not just about healing physically, or it was a lot about healing your heart and also how to just feel better as a human being. And so today we'll talk about laughter and humor. We're going to talk about the science of happiness, because since then, the brain, we've studied the brain, and literally every week we learn something new about the brain, the neural pathway systems, and how this really does affect our health and our work and our communities, and the health of our communities, whether they're work communities or not. So we're going to be looking at, there we go. We're going to look at how to practice riding the waves. That is a photograph of my son when he was a little boy, and just captured him on film, and he was very excited and happy. And that's kind of what life is like. There's so many emotions and thoughts that go through in nanoseconds through our brains, and those are moments, and they do pass through, and we really need to remember that we can practice a lot of ways to allow those feelings to move through, because truly we're hardwired for more negative thinking. And the reason for that is that our ancestors, if we go way back to caveman time, or even our ancestors after that, they were out looking for food, and as they did that, they were always looking for danger. So we were really hardwired as human beings to look for danger. So the neural pathway systems in our brain that are more geared for fear and negativity are the strongest neural pathway systems that we have. The good news is that we can learn to develop more positive neural pathway systems in our brain, so that when we recognize we're really in a low place, we can remember this is a feeling that's passing through, or a thought that we can have passed through, and we can kind of change the channel and jump shift into the more positive neural pathways, which we have the ability to build and to increase. I'm trying to push a button here to go forward, and it's not working. So let's, okay, no, back up. Back up. There we go. Are you going to have to do that for me now?
No.
Okay. So Matt Weinstein was at this conference, and he was a delightful person who traveled the world and still probably does, working with large corporations, really from the top down. He felt that if the top of the companies and the heads and the CEOs knew how important this particular topic is, that it would sift down through into the entire organization. And his quote about what he thought work was and his definition of work is here. It says, if you were to think about life on this planet for a minute, I think you'd be absolutely insane to say it's to produce a certain product or beat out your competition. Our work is a way of making meaningful contact with other people, not an end in itself. It facilitates an opportunity to make a difference in others' lives. And that strikes me very deeply. It's making meaningful contact with other people and making a difference in their lives. So let's just say you don't like your job very well or what you're doing. You can come back to this and think, okay, how can I make meaningful contact with the people I'm working with? How can I make a difference maybe in their life? And it doesn't have to be something huge. It can be something that is just a pleasant thing you say to them. So on the next slide, which comes up, it says laughter is one of the best medicines, and it's free. It's one of the healthiest things we can do. I'm going to ask you to just close your eyes for just a few seconds. And I can't see you, so I don't know if you're doing that, but I want you to think of a time when you were really laughing, a big belly laugh. Now, I have had some people say, well, wow, I don't even think I can remember one, but just try. And I want you to picture that and visualize exactly where you were, who you were with, what the sights, the sounds, the smells were, how you were laughing, the deep laughter that you had. And just stay with that a moment and see how you're feeling. Okay, that's not a very long time, but I want you to just think about if you were able to actually do that. When I'm with a group that I can see, I usually am seeing smiles on several faces. And then I'll have some people say, I just really couldn't think of one at this time. So what laughter does for us, and we already know so much of this, but number one, it really does boost your immune system. And what I mean by that is after a deep belly laugh, your blood pressure goes down below normal. It increases your circulation. It oxygenates your entire system, so you're getting more oxygen in your brain. That's kind of critical for doing some thinking while you're at work. It can actually lower pain levels if you have pain, and it lowers your cortisol level. So cortisol. Cortisol is the hormone that is the stress hormone. And we all carry cortisol. I mean, it's just not much we can do about that. We do carry it. We just aren't always really conscious of it. So it does decrease that cortisol. And, you know, if you just think about a funny movie you've seen lately, just thinking about that movie. If you could just even, we don't have to do it right now, but at some point, if you can remind yourself to think about a funny movie when you're in a little bit of a low, after that, it will bring your cortisol down, and it also puts you in the same state of body chemistry that you were feeling as you were laughing in this movie. And your pulse will come back down and return to normal, and those are some of the things that happen just physically to us. Laughter is one of the things that stimulates our brain, both sides of our brain at the same time, so it improves your memory. Maybe that's why I'm one of the 5 top laughers at work. I really need to work on that one. It also opens up your mind, and you can be more creative, and you have more of an ability to learn. So teachers have found in the classroom that if they pair a new piece of learning with something that's bizarre or funny or a funny story, the students remember it by far better than if they didn't add it to something that was funny. The Mayo Clinic studies that came out indicate that it really does do all of this with our neurobiology. It indicates that laughter does create those openings to receive information, and it really does encourage your mind to move from kind of an ordinary way of looking at things to something that may solve a problem that you'd have no idea would even be available to you. In Japan, they did a study for diabetics, and they call it, it's really funny, it's the laughter-sugar connection. After diabetics ate and they had them start laughing, they would get them going laughing, they took samples of their blood, and their blood sugar levels were much lower. So whether you're a diabetic or not, and whether you've been starting in on eating lots of Christmas goodies and holiday candies or whatever might be hanging around your office, you might want to just go ahead and start laughing and make sure everyone in the office knows why, because it might sound a little strange if you're not a normal big laugher, and get your blood sugar back down to where it might be more healthy for you. It also boosts your serotonin, and that's one of the chemicals in our brain that it does help with any of those blues, grumpiness, depression. Laughter is very cathartic, and catharsis means to cleanse and to purge and to move forward. And we know that children, the average child laughs about 500 times a day, and that sounds crazy, but they do. And the average adult laughs maybe 15 times a day. And you may think, well, I don't even think that's possible. And some people will be saying, oh my gosh, there's a lot more laughing going on aside from that. But guess what? Children learn fast, and they're very creative, and they can come up with great ideas, and that's how they learn. So maybe we have a lot to learn from going back into that mode of that creative way of thinking that children can do. You also don't really need a reason to laugh. It's an internal process. It's innate. It's very innate. I mean, how many of you, and I know you can't answer me, but how many of you have ever seen a baby in a baby carriage just kind of laughing? And if you have, how many of you have ever gone up to that baby and said, well, what's so funny? Actually, they're just laughing, and you don't need a reason to laugh. You can go home tonight, look in the mirror, and say, hee hee, see what happens. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, I think I'm on the right page. The other things that laughter do, continuing on, is that it establishes rapport and shares insight with people around you, and it communicates a willingness to really bond with people. It's considered a great equalizer. Ben and Jerry's ice cream, when they started their company, I think most of us know about that ice cream. When they started their company many, many, many years ago, they developed what's called the Joy Committee, which we might touch on a little bit later, and they wanted people to have fun at work, no matter what their job was, because they knew that having fun at work, whether you were packing ice cream or eating it, that if you're laughing together, it breaks down barriers, and it creates more loyalty. It decreases the turnover, and it increases productivity, which saves the money some saves the company a lot of money. And their first year that they were open, they donated 33% of their profits to charity. So the company had a really strong idea of what was important for employees and how to keep people from, leaving difficult jobs. Laughter helps us cope. It really does relax you. My father was known to have fallen off of a chair laughing. My mother wasn't real amused by that, but my sister and brother and I weren't always really amused when my mother started laughing and had to cross her legs and run to the nearest restroom. So it is very relaxing. It does relax you. It helps shift our perspective. It's really hard to be angry if you're laughing. And it does help to repair conflicts. If you can start looking at something, well, okay, that really was upsetting, but let's see what's really, really important here. It increases your white blood cells, and again, that's how our immune system gets a boost. If you look at number 13, it says laughter is present in deaf and blind babies and sounds the same in all cultures. So it is so innate. It is not something that we learn, but it is something, if we're not laughing enough in our life, that we can practice. And at the bottom of each page, you're going to notice the word practice, practice, practice. And it's really what we have to do, just like we have to practice piano. If we're taking lessons, you have to practice the song over and over. A gymnast has to practice and practice. If we want to add more health to our life, we have to really practice and practice and practice. So those are just things that you're going to see on the bottom of each page to remind us that this isn't something we can just wait for. We really can put it into our day. Number 14 is the concern that's coming up now in science, is that children may be heading for a whole lot of social ills because their play and leisure time is so isolated that they do lose out on lots of chances for laughter. And laughter is a social experience and 30 times less frequent in your solitary time. I'm not going to say that you don't laugh out loud when you're home, or just laugh out loud sometimes if you're reading a book, or if something happens and you decide to laugh instead of yell and scream. I was known for losing my keys to the house or the car, getting locked out a lot. My father actually gave me a pair of clip-on earrings with keys, one for my car and one for my house. And I would get really freaked out and run around, try to find them. And finally, I've learned now, and I don't do it as much anymore, but if I just started laughing, it kind of opened my mind up, and I could really kind of find where those keys were. It also is something that can help you through an embarrassing situation. I don't know how many of you get embarrassed, but I've had a lot of embarrassing moments in my life. One time when my son was maybe 5, and I had a new friend who brought his 80-year-old cousin to visit us. And my son hadn't really been around anyone who was that age, and so before she got there for dinner, I said, now, please have your best manners. Please just, be very kind. Don't run and jump and bounce off of her. She's 80 years old. Don't swear. I got him all set up. He couldn't have been better. I was totally shocked. So it was time to go to bed, and I said, well, why don't you go get ready for bed? He ran in, got his jammies on, came out, sat on the couch by Peggy. That's who she was. And he looked at her and he said, well, Peggy, I sure hope I see you again because you're not dead yet. Now, Peggy, I was standing in the living room. My other friend was laying on the couch, and Peggy was sitting there. I turned bright red, purple. I felt like backing out of the room. And all of a sudden, Peggy just started laughing, and then all of us were laughing hysterically because what he said was so true. He talked about two things, really, that are sort of verboten in our society. One is death and age. So Peggy loved it. She was around till she was 100 years old, and every time she saw me, she would look at me and go, Rebecca, I'm not dead yet. So there is something you could do if you do something really silly or fall down or something that you can say is, well, now for my encore. Because I did do that walking in to do a presentation. I didn't realize that my purse was wrapped around my feet as I was getting ready to stand up and go in, and I fell flat on my face, and I learned to say, oh, now for my encore. Okay, is this going to go forward? Yeah. Laughing at and versus laughing with. The really important part of this is that humor really is powerful, and it can be constructive, but it can be very destructive. And it's really important to know the difference. If you look at below, it's how do we laugh with people, and are we laughing at people? So laughing with people is really more of a caring, empathetic thing that you do. It involves fun with people, choosing to be the butt of the joke. It builds confidence and invites people in. And laughing at yourself is really critical. And all of these things create a stronger team loyalty and productivity. On the other side, though, it can be, humor or laughter can come in a form of really going for the jugular vein, kind of contemptual, putting people down, a lack of sensitivity. It just can be really offensive, and so you really have to be careful, because sarcasm, some people think, is really funny. It's not really funny. It can really be hurtful. So just sort of those things to remember in your work site, at home, with your friends, with your family. So we've talked a lot about that, and we've talked now reasons for lightening up at work. It's kind of like you get to work sharp and you leave really dull. I can relate to that one. So there's this idea of this kind of work overload for some of us. Office politics, humdrum routines can kind of get the best of us if we let them. But that sense of humor can really save us. We spend most of our waking hours on the job with coworkers, traveling to and from work and thinking of work. So while we're here, we might as well have more fun. Matt Weinstein says that if you practice making meaningful contact with other people, just think about the opportunities that you can take advantage of in making a difference in others' lives if those things in your work time begin to feel very humdrum. It doesn't mean putting a whoopee cushion on the CEO's chair, but if nothing else, you can do things. If your work site isn't a very jovial place, do things for yourself. Surround your things with fun things on your desk that remind you of happy times. Use fun or meaningful passwords, things that you want to be practicing. I won't tell you what some of those could be, but you can figure those out and use those passwords, because every time you use it, you think about that, and it goes into your brain, and it stays there. And it may only stay for a while, but it still goes in. We know it's good for your health. We've talked about that. It gives you kind of a sense of power and helps you cope. It builds bridges between people. We've talked about that. And Joel Goodman, another humorist, says that he calls it the hardening of attitudes. If we don't laugh, we can harden our attitudes. Again, more reasons to lighten up at work. I know that the first, number 3, isn't quite what we're talking about in the workplace, humor being the #1 romantically attractive trait. So if you're online, on dating sites, that's great. Make sure you put something about yourself that's humorful. But it does show us how important the sense of humor is and how people are attracted to that. It's been a very strong outlet for people who are in stressful positions, such as police or people who are healthcare workers in very stressful situations, and sometimes they do use sick humor to get through grim situations. It really does show us that we're human. You're one of the men or women, guys or gals, whether you're at the top or low end of the job spectrum, it really is an equalizer, and it brings out that heart-to-heart connection. And demonstrating your humanity and humility by telling a funny story about yourself is always really helpful. Telling jokes is very risky, and I want to just say that you want to think very carefully about a joke before you tell it, because you never know who you're going to hurt. What it might touch in someone else that could be painful from their life experience. So just really pick that joke apart and think about it. Unless, of course, you know somebody really, really well, and you've known them for many years, and they're a friend of yours at work. One thing you can do is tell stories like this one. I thought this was a joke to begin with, but it was really a true story, and it was a preschool teacher called the home of a preschooler, and the preschooler actually answered the phone. And she said, well, may I speak to your mother? And he said, she's busy. And she said, oh, well, can I talk to your dad? And he said, he's busy too. Well, is anybody else there? Yeah, the police. She said, oh, anybody else there? Well, the firefighters. And she said, what is going on there? And he said, they're looking for me. So I've never told my kids that because I have grandchildren, but that's the kind of story that you can tell. You know, those are funny stories. People can relate to that, and just to remind yourself that it's very, very important not to tell jokes that could hurt you. Thank you for my coworkers who are sitting here laughing. It is pretty corny. Oh, thanks a lot. She said it's corny. Okay. Joy Committee is what Ben and Jerry developed when they started their company. And aside from all the things we've already described, that it helped with their job turnover and everything else, it helped people feel less anxious and less depressed and a little more satisfied with their jobs and in life in general. So if you want to develop a Joy Committee, you can, or you can do that on your own, for yourself, at your own desk. But it's possible to have one of those committees in your office to kind of help think of things to do that might be kind of fun. The first thing on there says props, toys, and gadgets. I don't know. Some people like to have things around. That's another story that I'm going to tell, and I know a couple people here have heard that before, so you can laugh anyway. I went to Seattle with several friends many years ago, and I have very good parking karma. We went to Pike's Market, pulled into a parking place right there in Pike's Market, went to a store, and we'd gone there to go to this very fancy gala dinner with tuxedos and everything that evening. And we were looking through this basket of all these different kinds of noses. And all at once, we all pulled the same nose out. And it was a pig nose. And we went, aha, tonight. So we did some shopping, got in the car, put our pig noses on. Here we are in this car all together, leaving Pike's Market. And guess what the kids did when they looked in the car? Well, they laughed. They were laughing and giggling and pointing, and guess what their parents did? Their parents kind of turned their head another way and pulled their kids away from the car. We went to another friend's house. We walked in. She never said a word, and when we left, she said, I cannot believe I just, talked to a bunch of kids. In the car, though, we were having a lot of fun. We were saying, oh, we're just so hognacious, and all of those silly things we could do. And we went to the dinner, and we're sitting at these big tables with candles and mirrors, and so we all decided, and there were like 10 or 12 of us at a table, that when the maitre d' started to serve the dinner, we were all going to put the pig nose on and set up and look at everyone. And I thought, yeah, sure, that I'm going to be the only one doing it. But actually, we all did, and oh my gosh, the maitre d' almost lost the tray. Everybody looked at us like we were crazy. And then they started laughing. They were laughing so hard. And then the entire room was laughing. And then we danced with them on. And then we got even more brave. We went outside and left the party with the pig noses on, walking down the street. Laughter can be very risky. And so, and when you take a risk, it's very important to have that little step by step as you're going through taking a new risk in your life. So we started in a car all together. We had our support team. Then we moved a little farther out. Then we moved farther out until we really kind of obtained a goal we didn't even know we were going to obtain. You can keep a file of humorous things in your drawer on your desk. Take 1 minute a day, 10 times a day to at least step back and think of something fun. Take a breath. Again, it may be simply that you say thank you to someone. The studies indicate that thanking somebody for anything they've done, and at work especially, it increases that person's productivity 20%. Maybe not for a long period of time, but it will increase productivity. Smiling at someone changes your body chemistry, and it actually changes the other person's body chemistry even if they don't smile back. And it's just a way to make connection and let people know that you appreciate them. It's also very important to get up and move around. I don't know how many of you sat at a desk or are in front of a computer a lot. It's so important to get up and move around. We do a thing here in our office that people aren't all exactly enthused about, but I do a little dance where I say, I learned from my yoga teacher that she says motion is lotion, meaning that really creates a lot of energy in your body. It lubricates your bones and your muscles. So I'll go around once in a while to my coworkers now because they know, and I'll do a little dance, motion is lotion. And then once in a while they'll get up and they'll do that with me. You know, start with someone and pass it on, or get a stretch partner at work, someone that you can go in their office, just take a 30-second stretch with them. It's a great reminder to really help yourself feel better. You might want to do a humor inventory for yourself. These are just things you can think about. Identify 5 things you had fun doing when you were a child. And what do you really love most about watching children? Name 5 things that make you laugh if you can. Describe your own sense of humor. Sometimes it's helpful to identify 3 people whose sense of humor you admire, and what is it that you admire about it. And is your humor and your laughter and your sense of happiness better around certain people, and why? And you know, how can you spend more time with those people? And what can you transfer? How can you transfer some of that to other relationships? You might just want to think of some of those things that you can do or think about and add to your life. I'm going to ask a question now, and the question is, you can respond to this question, is, do you feel that you have a more optimistic outlook on life or a more skeptical and pessimistic outlook on life? We'll see if you want to vote on that. And I'll give you some time. And I don't know if the question came up on the screen.
It did.
Okay, so just think if you feel you have a more optimistic outlook or a more skeptical, pessimistic outlook. Now, can we see this? Can anybody else see this screen?
No. You'll have to tell them what the results
Okay.
are. Brenda can close it in a second.
Okay, we're just giving people some time to finish voting on that. We're getting the percentages in. I feel like I should be standing in a voting booth, even though we don't have those anymore. Has everybody voted, you think? Yeah. Okay. So 83% of you here on this webinar said that you do have a more optimistic outlook. And 17% feel they have a little more skeptical and pessimistic outlook. So let me, I'm going to actually move to a different, well, maybe I'm not going to do that right now. I've got to think about this a minute. We'll get to a place when I can explain how, if you feel like you want to have a bit more optimism in your life, you have control over that. You have an ability to increase that. And some people feel like that optimism, that being more skeptical and pessimistic is safer, that you need to look for danger. But that can also create other physiological problems for you, and it can create problems at work. And we'll go by and take a look at what that might mean. Still in your own humor inventory, you might want to brainstorm 10 of your biggest frustrations at work, and then 10 of the best qualities of yourself with your mate or your children or your mother or your boss. And you might want to change your change when you use more humor. See what happens when you do. They're just things to think about. One very small change that you make can make a very big difference in how you feel and how other people feel too. Oh, I think I missed a page. I've got a few things I'm going to talk about before we get to that page. There are a couple of quotes. One from George Burns, and he says, happiness is having a large, loving, caring, close-knit family in another city. Happiness cannot come from from outside of us. It comes from within. It's not what we see and touch or what others do that make us happy. It's what we think and feel and do, sometimes first for the other person and then for ourselves. And sometimes you need to do that for yourself first when you're not feeling good or you haven't been well or you're feeling depleted. You need to really take good care of yourself before you have much to give to others. Okay. I think that it's important to remember that happiness may be genetically influenced, but it's not genetically fixed. And that's what I'm saying, and we'll take a little look at how you can do some of those things for yourself to increase that in your life. So now let me think if I can hit the right button and get to the right place. This might be out of order for me in how I was thinking, so you'll have to bear with me. Martin Seligman posed a question, what is in your heart? Is it yes or is it no? So think about saying yes to adding a few of the following practices to improve your health. And kind of what the question is what is happiness? I mean, the common meaning of the word happiness is feeling good, a sense of pleasure, gladness, gratification. And the far less common meaning of the word happiness is living a rich, full, and meaningful life. So when we take action on things that truly matter deep in our hearts and we move in directions that we consider valuable and worthy, those are the things that can really bring more meaning and a sense of happiness. And it's not some fleeting feeling. It's profound. And happiness will bring that sense of a life well lived. Although life it's undoubtedly going to bring also sadness, fear, and anger. That's to be expected. So if we live a full life, we will feel that full range of human feelings, human emotions. And you can hold both of those, happiness and sadness and fear. Sometimes it says that joy can be only as high as our sadness is deep, which in a sense is saying that if you can feel great joy, that you feel, and great sadness, you feel that full range of feelings. And I'm going to try to get to what I think these got out of order for me. And here we go. So there is a way to put in your pocket a bunch of practices. And our complex systems as human beings can be really altered by very simple practices. Kind of as we've said, just a smile changes your entire body chemistry. Saying thank you increases someone's productivity by 20%. But first of all, you have to believe in laughter and humor. You really need to believe in it. Laugh at yourself. That's so important. Make mistakes. Laugh at yourself. Laugh out loud. I mean, it may sound silly. We talked about, laughing in the office and maybe, making sure other people are okay with that. I wouldn't necessarily say walk down the street laughing and laughing and laughing like, really loud. You may be escorted by the police somewhere. And it is kind of risky, and it may seem very silly, but I'm going to let you know what the word silly comes from. The word silly comes from a Greek word, and the Greek word is selig. S-E-L-I-G. Selig. S-E-L-I-G. And the Greek word means happy, healthy, blessed, and prosperous. Happy, healthy, blessed, and prosperous. So actually, it's really pretty good idea to get silly sometimes. Try to look forward to one thing each day. Maybe do a brief heart coherence meditation every day. And that simply means to stop just for a minute, close your eyes, and visualize breathing going through your heart. This has actually been scientifically documented that this will help balance your cognitive with your feelings, because so many of us really get into the thinking, the brain, the cognitive, and it really depletes our ability to get in touch with our emotion or our feelings. We need a balance of those to make good decisions at work. Slowing down is critical as a practice. Rushing around, trying to get things done fast, typically we make more mistakes. It doesn't seem like that. It seems like we have to really go fast and practice and going fast so that we look busy, act busy, but it really creates an ability to make more mistakes. Listen to music daily. Turn off the news. It may really help with reverse paranoia. In other words, the world is out to help me. And if you practice optimism, we can be taught to feel bad, and we can be taught to feel really good. So if you're struggling with something gloomy or something that's difficult, none of these things are cure-alls. But anything really is worth a try, no matter how small it is. I'm going to just go forward to the next slide and let you know what we don't need for happiness. You don't need intelligence. You don't need material possessions. You don't need power and status or youth or beauty. It's kind of nice to have the youth and beauty back sometimes for some reasons, and you don't need more money. And I'm going to actually qualify that. We know that studies have been done that after someone wins the lottery, they can be really high and excited and happy for maybe the first 3 to 6 months, and then you come back to your original set point. So genetics really do shape 50% of our happiness set point. Genetics do. 10% comes from the environment that we grow up in. But 40% is something that we can create on our own. And we can create that by practicing some of the things that are in this webinar and some things that you already know. Remember, what you think about will expand. And I know it's really easy to get stuck in a route of thinking over a groove and over and over and over about something that's really worrying you and bothering you. And when we do that, it expands. So the opposite happens when you think about something that was pleasurable or fun. Or remember the time you were laughing at the funny movie, and if you think about it more and more and more, that will also expand. The story about a cat, this big cat, older cat, was watching a little kitten chase its tail and chase its tail and chase its tail. And the big cat said, well, what are you chasing your tail for? And the little cat said, the kitty said, well, I heard there was happiness in it, and I'm going to get it. And the big cat said, yeah, it's already in your tail. It just follows you around wherever you go. So that's kind of a story that you might want to remember and think about. So what do we need for happiness? We need relationships. Meaningful work. Find what is meaningful at your job. Whatever it is that is meaningful. Whether it's your friends, whether it's the kind of work you do. If the kind of work you're doing right now doesn't feel really meaningful, you can volunteer at something outside of work and have that be part of what is meaningful. Financial security, we do need enough for our basic needs of living, housing, food, certain things that we need. But once we go beyond that, we know that we don't need more than that to really have happiness. And a spiritual connection, whether it's religion or meditation or poetry, whatever that is for anyone. An enjoyment of just small, daily, natural pleasures. I'm going to ask you another question that you can come in on, and that is going to be put on the screen. The second question is, do you believe you can learn to shift from negative to optimistic points of view? And that's just a yes or a no. And you can start voting on that. Okay. Are you voting? Give you a little time. Question again is, do you believe you can learn to shift from negative to optimistic viewpoints? Yes or no?
100% say yes.
Okay, 100% say yes. All right. The next question is, do you have people in your workplace that seem to bring out the best in you? Yes or no? Okay, voting is in, so
About 80-20.
it's about 80% feel that you do and 24% feel you don't. Okay? The next question is, do you have Grinches at your workplace? Yes or no? Voting. Voting's coming in. Voting's coming in. Voting's coming in.
About 90 yes. Yes.
So 90% say, yes, you have a Grinches in your workplace, and 10% say, no, let's go to your place at work. So the last question is, do you think you can help change a Grinch's attitude? Yes or no? Okay, that poll came in, and if you're finished voting. We almost are finished voting.
80-20 again.
80% feel like you can, and 21% of your percent feel you can't. So carry it around with you. Think of this one. Albert Schweitzer says, happiness is nothing more than good health and a bad memory. I want you to just remember that you can look for things that are good. I want to ask you to quickly look around wherever you're sitting, and can you find 5 things that are red? Just really quickly. 5 things. 5 things that are red. Try to find 5 things that are red. Hopefully you found some. There's all kinds of things in this room that are hard to find, though. Okay. Now, how many of you, think about this, have ever bought a new car to you, and about every 5th or 6th car on the road you see is the same car model that you just bought? Most of us feel like that unless you don't drive. If you bought a new bicycle, you see the same model. So most of us will see that. So really the gist of this is that you're going to find what you're looking for. If you're looking for the giggle, you're going to find it. But if you're looking for the conspiracy, you're going to find that too. So you might wake up in the morning and ask yourself, okay, I'm going to try to look for a few things that really bring me joy. And when I'm looking for the conspiracy, I want to try to shift over and get into my more positive neural pathways in my brain. And I can practice that. I can practice that. So kind of bringing this together, smile, be well, practice, practice, practice. I hope that you were able to take maybe 1 or 2 things from this that you might do. Remember, very small things make a very big difference in our complex systems. Thank you so much for joining us here today, and I hope that you have a great afternoon and that you find ways to continue to practice feeling better and feeling healthier.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca, and everybody. Thank you for coming, and have a great end of the year.